She hesitated, searching for words. When we are together as husband and wife, I need you to, I can only do it a certain way. Chidi waited patiently as she gathered her courage. I need you behind me, always. Her eyes dropped to their joined hands.
You mean?
Yes, she cut him off, not wanting him to say the words. That's the only way I can manage. It's my condition, the only one I'll ever ask of you. Chidi first saw Amaka at Auntie Feoma's funeral in Enugu. She stood under the canopy tent, her simple black dress making her skin glow like polished ebony in the harsh December sun. Unlike the other girls who cried loudly for a woman they barely knew, Amaka moved quietly, efficiently, making sure the elders had chairs and cold water.
Who is that girl?
Chidi asked his cousin Emeka.
That one is Amaka. Her mother and my mother grew up in the same compound. She just finished university, banking and finance.
Chidi nodded, watching how she balanced 3 plates of jollof rice for the village elders.
She's different.
Emeka laughed, slapping Chidi's shoulder.
Different how? Because she's not throwing herself at the big Lagos boy with Toyota Camry. My friend, go and help with the drinks instead of standing here like electric pole.
Later, as the sun began its lazy descent behind the cashew trees, Chidi found Amaka sitting alone on a plastic chair, her feet dusty from running errands all day.
You've been working hard,
he said, offering her a cold bottle of Maltina. She looked up, suspicious at first, then grateful for the drink. Thank you.
I'm Chidi, Emeka's cousin from Lagos.
I know who you are, she said simply, taking a small sip. Everyone knows the big man who came back from Lagos for the burial. Her directness surprised him. Most girls batted their eyelashes and asked about life in the city. Amaka just looked at him with clear eyes that seemed to see through his designer shirt to the uncertain boy who had left the village 10 years ago.
And what else do they say about me?
He asked, curious. That you work in a big oil company, that you have a fine car and a flat in Lekki, that you're looking for a wife. She shrugged. Village talk. Chidi laughed, genuine and unguarded.
2 out of 3 is not bad. I do work for an oil company and I have a flat in Lekki, but it's rented, not bought. And I'm not looking for a wife. At least I wasn't until today.
The hint of a smile touched her lips, quickly hidden behind the Maltina bottle.
Give me your number,
he said impulsively.
I go back tomorrow, but I'd like to call you.
Amaka studied him for a long moment, as if reading something written on his face. Why? So you can add me to your collection of village girls waiting for texts that never come?
No,
Chidi said, surprised by her candor.
Because you're the only person at this funeral who didn't try to impress me. And that impresses me.
A week later, back in his air-conditioned office overlooking Lagos Lagoon, Chidi found himself staring at his phone during lunch break. 3 missed calls from his mother already, no doubt asking if he had found a nice Igbo girl during his village visit. His finger hovered over Amaka's number.
Just call her,
his office mate Tunde urged, munching on his meat pie.
The worst she can say is no.
When Amaka answered, her voice sounded different, more polished, less village-inflected. I'm surprised you called, she said after he identified himself.
I said I would.
Men say many things. Her tone was matter-of-fact, not bitter. I'm in Lagos next weekend, she continued before he could respond. My job interview.
Which bank?
First Monument, their graduate trainee program. Chidi's heart quickened. First Monument's headquarters was just 2 buildings from his office.
Let me take you to lunch after. For good luck.
There was a pause, the kind that stretches like rubber band about to snap. Okay, she finally said, but just lunch. Their lunch lasted 3 hours. Amaka arrived in a sensible blue suit, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She spoke of her dreams, not just to work in a bank, but to eventually start a microfinance initiative for market women like her mother. My father left when I was 10, she told him over ice cream. just packed his Ghana must-go bags and disappeared to Cotonou with his second wife. My mother raised 4 of us by selling vegetables in the market.
That must have been hard.
Chidi said, thinking of his own comfortable childhood with a father who worked as a secondary school principal. Amaka's eyes flashed. We were poor, not pitiful. My mother made sure we all went to school. My brother is studying medicine at Unilag now. Chidi admired her pride, so different from the girls he usually dated who complained about broken nails and insufficient allowances from their parents.
My father wanted me to be a doctor. He was disappointed when I studied engineering instead. Even more disappointed when I took a corporate job instead of building bridges.
At least he stayed to be disappointed, Amaka said, but without self-pity. 2 weeks later, Amaka called with news. She got the job. 6 months later, she moved to Lagos, renting a small room in Yaba. Their relationship grew slowly, built on weekend visits to the museum, walks on the beach, and long conversations about their dreams. Chidi learned that behind Amaka's strong exterior lay a young woman determined to rewrite her family's story. Amaka discovered that despite Chidi's privileged background, he carried his own burdens, mainly the weight of family expectations. It was Chidi who said, "I love you." First, on a rainy evening as they huddled under a leaky bus stop shelter in Obalende. Amaka didn't say it back immediately. Instead, she looked at him with those clear, assessing eyes. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Love is a serious word where I come from."
I'm sure.
He said, rain dripping from his nose onto his sodden shirt.
Like flood in Lagos gutters during rainy season. Unstoppable.
She laughed then, a full-throated sound that made the passerby turn. "Then I love you too, God help me, but I do." What Chidi didn't know, couldn't know, was that Amaka carried more than dreams in her heart. She carried secrets too, heavy ones that would test their love in ways neither could imagine. Secrets with a name and a face, secrets called Ekene. 6 months later, Chidi proposed, not with a grand gesture in an expensive restaurant as his friends had advised, but quietly, on the balcony of his Lekki flat, as they shared pepper soup on a rainy Sunday afternoon.
Marry me.
He said simply, pulling the small velvet box from his pocket.
Be my wife, my partner, my home.
Tears filled Amaka's eyes, not the happy tears he had expected, but something more complex. "You don't know everything about me," she whispered.
I know enough. I know you're kind and strong and brilliant. I know you send half your salary to your mother even though it means you can't buy new clothes. I know you talk in your sleep sometimes, calling out names I don't recognize.
She looked stricken at that last part. What names?
I don't remember exactly. Something like Ekine.
The moment he said it, he knew it was significant. Amaka's face drained of color. "I can't," she said, standing abruptly. "I'm sorry, Chidi. I can't marry you." She fled his apartment, leaving the ring box open on the table, the diamond catching the dim light like a tear. It took 3 weeks of unanswered calls before Amaka agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a quiet bookshop cafe in Surulere. She looked thinner, shadows like bruises beneath her eyes. "I love you," she said before he could speak. "That's why I can't marry you, because I love you too much to bring my darkness into your life."
What darkness?
Chidi asked, reaching for her hand across the table. She let him take it, but her fingers remained limp in his grasp. "There are things in my past," she began, then stopped, looking around nervously as if the other cafe patrons might be listening. "Things I haven't told anyone in Lagos, things only my family knows."
Tell me.
Chidi urged.
Whatever it is, we can face it together.
Amaka's eyes met his, full of doubt and a flicker of hope. "Ekene, my ex from university." Chidi nodded encouragingly, though something cold settled in his stomach. "He wasn't just my boyfriend," Amaka continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. He controlled everything. Who I spoke to, what I wore, when I could visit my family."
That's not love.
Chidi said gently.
That's possession.
I know that now. Amaka's free hand twisted her paper napkin into shreds. But then, I thought it was normal. He was older, already working while I was still a student. He paid for things I could never afford, nice clothes, proper meals when my allowance ran out. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. When I finally tried to leave him, he hurt me badly in ways I can't talk about in a public place. Chidi felt sick, angry at a man he'd barely glimpsed, aching for the pain in Amaka's eyes.
Is that why you said no to my proposal? Because of him?
Because of what he did to me, she corrected. Because of what it made me. I'm not whole, Chidi. There are parts of me that don't work right anymore.
You're exactly as you should be,
Chidi insisted.
and I want to marry you, all of you, including the parts that are still healing.
3 months later, they were married in a modest ceremony in Amaka's village. Ekene did not appear, though Amaka scanned the crowd nervously throughout the celebration. Chidi's parents attended reluctantly. His mother had hoped he would marry the daughter of her prayer group friend, a docile girl with a master's degree from London. She seems strong-willed, his mother whispered during the reception, watching Amaka direct the caterers with firm efficiency.
She is.
Chidi agreed proudly.
That's why I love her.
What he didn't know then, couldn't have known, was that Amaka's strength was a shield built from necessity, not choice, and that their first night together as husband and wife would reveal just how deep her wounds ran. Their honeymoon was a modest 3 days at a beach resort in Calabar. The room overlooked the ocean, waves crashing against dark rocks in hypnotic rhythm. As evening fell on their wedding night, awkwardness crept in like the tide, slow but unstoppable. "I'll change in the bathroom," Amaka said, grabbing her overnight bag. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she fumbled with the zipper.
Take your time.
Chidi replied, sensing her nervousness and attributing it to normal bridal jitters. When she emerged 20 minutes later in a white satin nightgown, a gift from her bank colleagues, Chidi felt his breath catch. Even with tension radiating from her like heat, she was beautiful.
You look like an angel.
He said softly. Amaka's smile didn't reach her eyes. Angels don't have bodies to worry about. She sat beside him on the edge of the bed, hands folded tightly in her lap. After a moment of heavy silence, she turned to him, her expression resolute despite the fear flickering beneath. "Chidi," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to ask something of you, something important." He took her hand gently.
Anything.
She hesitated, searching for words. "When we are together as husband and wife, I need you to, I can only do it a certain way." Chidi waited patiently as she gathered her courage. "I need you behind me, always." Her eyes dropped to their joined hands.
You mean...
"Yes," she cut him off, not wanting him to say the words. "That's the only way I can manage. It's my condition, the only one I'll ever ask of you." Confusion crossed Chidi's face, but he nodded slowly.
If that's what you need, then of course. But Amaka, may I ask why?
She shook her head firmly. "Not tonight, maybe someday, but not tonight." Her eyes pleaded with him not to press further. "Can you accept this? Can you accept me this way?"
I can accept anything if it means having you as my wife.
He answered, though questions multiplied in his mind.
We'll do whatever makes you comfortable.
Relief washed over her face as she leaned forward to kiss his cheek. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for not asking more." What followed started tenderly enough. Gentle kisses, careful touches, murmured reassurances. But when the moment came for them to truly become husband and wife, Amaka turned away as she had said she would, positioning herself facing the wall. Chidi, confused but not wanting to pressure her, followed her lead, respecting the conditions she had set. Their first time was brief, almost mechanical. When it was over, Amaka quickly went to the bathroom and stayed there for nearly an hour, Chidi heard the shower running the entire time.
Are you okay?
He called through the door, worry gnawing at him. "I'm fine," came her muffled reply, "just washing up." When she finally emerged, her eyes were slightly red, but her voice was calm. "Let's sleep now. I'm tired from all the wedding excitement." Chidi lay awake long after Amaka's breathing became deep and regular. Something wasn't right, but he didn't know how to ask without seeming insensitive. Was it just first-time discomfort, he wondered, or was there more behind her strange condition? He remembered her words from earlier. "I need you behind me. Always." The firmness in her voice suggested this wasn't merely a preference, but something deeper, more painful perhaps. But the pattern was established that night. In the months and years that followed, whenever intimacy occurred between them, Amaka would always turn away, always face the wall, honoring the condition she had set on their wedding night. Never once did she allow an exception. At first, Chidi accepted it without question, remembering his promise. Many couples had their own ways, he told himself. And despite this condition, their marriage was good in other ways. Amaka was a supportive partner, an excellent cook, and their conversations about everything from politics to movies were engaging and fun. 4 months into their marriage, they moved from Chidi's bachelor flat to a proper 2-bedroom apartment in Surulere, neutral territory that would be truly theirs. As they settled into domestic life, Chidi began to wonder more about her mysterious condition, hoping that perhaps with time and growing trust, their physical relationship might evolve. It didn't. The first time he gently tried to turn Amaka to face him during their intimate moments, forgetting for a moment the condition he'd agreed to, she froze completely, her body going rigid as a corpse. "Don't," she whispered, her voice strangled. "Please don't, you promised."
I just want to see your face.
Chidi explained, immediately releasing her.
To connect with you fully.
"I can't." Amaka's voice was small, childlike. "You know I can't. It was my only condition." Chidi backed away, giving her space.
It's okay. We don't have to. I'm sorry I forgot.
But it wasn't okay. That night marked the beginning of a question that grew larger with each passing month. Why had his wife made such a specific demand? What was she seeing or avoiding seeing when she turned away? By their first anniversary, the mystery of her condition had become a weight, pressing down on their marriage. Chidi began working later, taking on extra projects to delay coming home. Amaka threw herself into church activities, volunteering for every committee that would keep her busy on weekends. They still shared meals, still discussed their days, still presented a united front to their families and friends. But a chasm was growing between them, unacknowledged, but impossible to ignore. The breaking point came after Amaka's cousin Flora visited with her newborn baby. After she left, Amaka sat on their sofa, tears streaming silently down her face.
What's wrong?
Chidi asked, alarmed.
Do you want a baby? We can start trying if you're ready.
Amaka's laugh was hollow. A baby? When we can barely touch each other without this wall between us, when I still can't even look at you during our most intimate moments. It was the first time either had openly acknowledged the problem since that night in Calabar. The words hung in the air like glass about to shatter.
Then talk to me.
Chidi pleaded, kneeling before her.
Tell me what's wrong. Why did you make that condition on our wedding night? Why won't you look at me? What are you afraid of seeing?
Not you, Amaka whispered, her hands twisting in her lap. Never you.
Then who?
But Amaka shook her head, tears falling faster now. I can't, not yet. That night, they slept separately for the first time. Amaka in their bedroom, Chidi on the living room couch. As he stared at the ceiling, he wondered if their marriage was already over, broken by the mysterious condition he had accepted and the secrets behind it that his wife wouldn't share. The next morning, Sunday, Amaka dressed carefully for church while Chidi pretended to sleep on the couch. After she left, he paced their apartment, picking up framed wedding photos, studying his wife's smile, searching for clues he might have missed. That strange condition from their wedding night still haunted him. What was she hiding? In their bedroom, frustrated and heartsick, he yanked open her bedside drawer, something he'd never done before. Inside, beneath a Bible and prayer journal, he found a newspaper clipping so worn it was falling apart at the creases. The headline read, "University student arrested for assault." The grainy photo showed a handsome young man being led away in handcuffs. The name jumped out at him, Ekene Okafor. Chidi felt a chill of recognition. This was the Ekene she sometimes mentioned in her sleep. The article was brief. A female student had pressed charges against her ex-boyfriend for physical and sexual assault. The victim's name was withheld, but the incident had allegedly occurred in her hostel room. The accused maintained the encounter was consensual. Chidi's hands shook as he carefully refolded the clipping and returned it to its hiding place. The pieces were starting to fit together. Her condition, her fear, her reluctance to face him. It all formed a picture that made his stomach churn with anger and sadness. When Amaka returned from church, she found Chidi sitting at their kitchen table, 2 cups of tea steaming before him.
We need to talk.
He said quietly.
And this time, I need the whole truth about your condition.
Amaka stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, her church handbag clutched against her chest like a shield. Something in Chidi's expression, a mixture of sadness and determination, told her this moment had been inevitable from the start. "What truth?" she asked, but her voice lacked conviction.
About Ekene, about what he did to you, about why you made that condition on our wedding night, why you can never look at me when we're intimate.
The handbag slipped from Amaka's grasp, hitting the tiled floor with a soft thud. "You went through my things." It wasn't a question, but Chidi nodded anyway.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. But Amaka, we can't continue like this. Living half a marriage with this ghost always between us.
For a moment, she looked like she might flee. Her eyes darted to the front door, calculating escape. Then, slowly, she pulled out the chair opposite him and sat down. "If I tell you everything," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "you might not want me anymore." Chidi reached across the table, palm up, an invitation, not a demand. After several seconds, Amaka placed her hand in his.
I have wanted you every day since we met,
He said.
Through every silence, every barrier, every condition. Nothing you tell me will change that.
Amaka took a deep breath, then another. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed, younger somehow, vulnerable in a way Chidi had never heard before. "I was in second year when I met him. Ekene was already working, already driving a car. All my friends were jealous." A bitter smile crossed her face. "He was so charming at first, brought me gifts, waited for me after lectures, made me feel special." She stared at their joined hands. The control started small. Comments about my clothes being too revealing. Questions about which male classmates I studied with. He would check my phone while I was showering. I didn't recognize it for what it was. I thought he just loved me too much. Chidi's thumb gently stroked her palm, encouraging her to continue. By third year, I was isolated. My roommates didn't like him, so I stopped bringing them around. My course mates thought I was proud because I had an older boyfriend with money, so they kept their distance. I was alone with him, exactly as he wanted. She pulled her hand away, wrapping her arms around herself. When I finally tried to break up with him, he became someone else entirely. He showed up at my hostel drunk. My roommates were away for the weekend. He forced his way in and... Her voice faltered. Chidi waited, his heart pounding painfully in his chest. He kept saying I had to look at him, kept forcing my face toward his. "Look at me while I remind you who you belong to," he said, over and over. "Look at me, look at me." Amaka's voice had taken on a hollow quality, as if she were reciting lines from a terrible play. After, he said if I reported him, he would tell everyone I had led him on, that I was a slut who changed my mind afterward.
But you did report him.
Chidi said softly.
I saw the article.
Amaka nodded. My roommate came back early and found me. She called my sister, who called my mother. Mama came straight to Lagos. She's the one who marched me to the police station, who stood beside me when everyone, even some female officers, said I was ruining a young man's life over relationship problems.
What happened to him?
He spent 3 months in jail before his father paid someone and the charges were reduced. Last I heard, he was working in Port Harcourt. She looked up, meeting Chidi's eyes directly. I thought I was over it. I had therapy at the University Counseling Center. I finished my degree. I focused on my career. But then
we got married.
Chidi finished for her. Yes. The word hung between them, heavy with implication. That's why I made that condition on our wedding night. The first time we were together, all I could hear was his voice. Look at me. If I turned around, if I didn't have to see your face.
You could pretend it wasn't happening.
Chidi said, understanding dawning like a painful sunrise. Amaka nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I love you, but every time, every single time, his ghost is there. And I hate myself for making you agree to that condition. Hate that I can't give you a normal marriage, normal intimacy. Chidi rose from his chair and came around the table, kneeling beside her.
You have nothing to hate yourself for. Nothing.
What kind of wife demands her husband can never see her face during lovemaking, she asked bitterly.
A wife who survived something terrible. A wife who is still healing. He took both her hands in his. I'm not going anywhere, Amaka, but I think you need more help than I alone can give.
The next day, Chidi called in sick to work, something he'd never done in his 5 years at the company. Instead, he spent the morning researching therapists who specialized in sexual trauma. By afternoon, he had appointments scheduled with 3 different counselors for Amaka to choose from.
We'll go together for the first session,
he told her.
After that, it's up to you if you want me there or not.
The therapist Amaka chose was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and an office in Ikea. Dr. Kemi listened without judgment as Amaka haltingly told her story, including the condition she had placed on their marriage, Chidi beside her, holding her hand through the worst parts. This won't be fixed in one session, doctor. Kemi warned them as their time ended. Healing is a process, not an event.
We have time,
Chidi assured her.
All the time we need.
The following months were difficult. Amaka had nightmares after sessions where she delved deep into her trauma. There were days she couldn't bear to be touched at all. Nights she cried until dawn. But there were also breakthroughs, moments when old wounds began to scab over, when new understanding replaced shame and fear. They learned to communicate in ways they never had before. Chidi discovered how to recognize the signs when Amaka was triggered, how to bring her back to the present with gentle words and patience. Amaka learned to voice her needs instead of retreating into protective silence. Their physical relationship changed too. Dr. Kemi suggested they temporarily remove all pressure for traditional intimacy, focusing instead on rebuilding trust through non-sexual touch. They would lie together, fully clothed, practicing eye contact for just a few seconds at first, then longer as Amaka's comfort grew. My body remembers what happened, she explained to Chidi one night as they lay face to face, practicing their exercises. But it can learn new memories too, with time. Maybe someday, I can let go of that condition I made you promise to keep. On their 2nd anniversary, they returned to the beach resort in Calabar, where they had spent their honeymoon. The same room, the same view of waves crashing against rocks. But they were different people now, more honest with each other, more aware of their wounds and their strength. That night, for the first time, Amaka faced Chidi fully during their most intimate moment, breaking the condition she had set 2 years earlier. Her eyes held his, not without fear, but with determination stronger than the fear. I see you, she whispered, her hands cradling his face, only you. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, Chidi felt tears on his cheeks, not from sadness, but from the profound relief of connection truly found. We'll have bad days again, Amaka warned, always the pragmatist. Healing isn't a straight line.
I know,
Chidi kissed her forehead gently.
but we're facing in the right direction now. A year later, when their daughter was born, a tiny, perfect being they named Chimamanda, after Amaka's favorite author, they made a promise over her sleeping form. This child would grow up in a home where truth was spoken, where pain was acknowledged but not given the final word, where healing happened in the light, not in shadows.